All set? Hey everyone, so I'm here to talk about hydrogen, which is a basic chemical feedstock that we use today to refine oil and make fertilizer. But it also holds the key to decarbonizing several other things like aviation, marine shipping, and steelmaking. So today we mostly make our hydrogen by splitting the molecule from methane gas. This produces 10 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of hydrogen, which is responsible for 1.5% of all US climate pollution. But we can also make emissions-free hydrogen. Electrolysis uses electricity to split hydrogen from water molecules. So we can use this hydrogen to clean up the dirty stuff and to decarbonize other heavy industries. So Congress recognized the need to grow the industry and passed a tax credit for clean hydrogen production. And the tax credit's value is tied to its upstream and production emissions. And so to get that really high tax credit value, you need to produce emissions or hydrogen with emissions that are 95% fewer than how we make it today. So the only scalable way to really do this is through electrolysis. So for example, you plug an electrolyzer into the grid, you buy enough clean energy, and there you have it, clean hydrogen. Or not really. So what looks to be clean is really more of a magic trick. The groups that are pushing this approach are trying to dazzle us with this clean hydrogen vision while hiding all the emissions up their sleeve and taking the subsidies to the bank. So if we pull the curtain back on this, we see that if clean energy is already online and electrolyzers start drawing power from it, then how does the power grid respond? Well, it ends up calling on fossil fuel power plants. And why does it do this? Well, power grids meet demand by calling on the cheapest available resources, and clean energy generally runs around the clock. Wind and solar are free, nuclear fuel is really cheap, so what fills in to meet that new demand is fossil fuels. And unlike electric vehicles and heat pumps, electrolyzers are very energy intensive, and so if you are causing fossil fuel power plants to ramp up, you're making hydrogen with up to five times the emissions that we're doing it today, which is horrible. But some groups are pushing the Treasury to allow this type of process to earn those top tax credits. And it's not hard to see why they would want to do this. They can make way more money this way than selling their energy into power markets. But luckily, the Treasury can write rules to make sure that electrolyzers are producing truly zero carbon hydrogen. So they need to draw power from new resources that deliver their power physically at the same time that electrolyzers are running. So back to the drawing board, the news story is that we need to allow this loose framework and all the emissions to bring electrolyzers down the cost curve. You produce a ton of them, and then we someday have a future of abundant clean hydrogen, right? Well, if we look at this a little more closely, we have two kind of business models. One supports inflexible systems that are cheaper. They run around the clock. They maximize their government subsidies, and they deliver a steady stream of hydrogen to off-takers, which is good. But if we have stringent rules in place, then we would incentivize the development of flexible systems that can move up and down with wind and solar generation. They get fewer government subsidies, and they invest in hydrogen storage to smooth gaps in their production. So if we have an inflexible system, it'll work really well during the subsidy period, and they can run nonstop. But when those tax credits expire, they're not going to be set up properly to deliver that consistent supply of hydrogen to off-takers. And this could really crater the industry. Maybe you have a bunch of stranded assets and lost jobs when the tax credits expire, or Congress kicks the can down the road another 5 to 10 years and doesn't really solve any problems but extends those tax credits. So with stringent rules, you are designing policy that's meant to achieve the desired outcome. So you're building flexible systems that can still produce hydrogen when they need to and deliver it to off-takers even after the credits expire. And we're going to need these types of systems to even clean our power grid. We need flexible electrolyzers to ramp up to capture excess wind and solar in some hours, and then ramp down in other hours so that power can serve other things. So these rules do bring extra costs, but the tax credit is rich enough that we're still going to deploy a ton of these electrolyzers. So if anything limits their development, it's probably going to be supply chain constraints with the electrolyzers and not any costs imposed by these rules. So to recap, we need the right rules in place to reduce emissions from electrolyzers today and grow the clean hydrogen industry over the long term. but it's going to take seeing through some illusions to get there. Thank you.